Hello everyone, I'm Burfy1322 and welcome to the Stewards room, where we'll be taking a look at racing incidents submitted by you guys and trying to make a determination on who, if anyone, was at fault. There's a link in the description to submit your own clips, and feel free to check out the playlist link for more of these videos, specifically the first which acts as a scene setter. Also, keep an eye out for cards popping up on screen towards the end of each segment where you can vote on who you thought was at fault for each incident. So all of our clips today are going to be talking about giving space and when you have to give space to another driver, when you don't have to give space to another driver. We're gonna take a look at it in more detail. So here's our first clip, and we're going into this corner here. Give space on the inside, but don't get space on the outside. What should have happened there, and who was at fault? So let's take a look at the rules of racing document that we always look at, and two parts in particular, because we're going to be able to look at these rules and then it will be able to inform us for the rest of the video and all the clips that we'll see. So when you're going up the inside of someone in terms of an inside overtake, if the attacker is more than halfway alongside the defender, then any collision is the fault of the defender, and the defender should be really giving space because he has lost the rights to that corner because the attacker has done enough on his inside overtake to be far enough up to the inside when it gets to the apex. On the flip side of that, if the attacker is less than halfway alongside the defender, then the attacker should be backing out of it, and any collision is the fault of the attacker because the defender is within his rights to continue his racing line because the attacker hasn't done enough to take that racing line away from the defender. When they're approximately halfway alongside the attacker to the defender, then it's in the realms of a racing incident. Both of the cars share blame in that situation because really they both should be giving a little bit of extra space to each other because the attacker's almost done enough and the defender should be giving a bit more space because of that. So it's basically a racing incident and both of them are to blame if there's a collision in that situation. Now we also need to look at what happens when someone is on the outside of a corner. So this happens when it comes to having someone try to make an overtake around the outside, but also when someone has gone up the inside and taken the racing line away from someone, what should the person on the outside be doing? So the guiding principle is that the driver on the outside should be at least level, and that means front axle in line with front axle, as we can see there at this point here, to have a claim to the racing line on the corner exit. So it doesn't matter what the driver on the outside or where the driver on the outside is at any point during this part of the track, but when it gets to the point of corner exit, if the driver on the outside of the circuit is in line with the driver on the inside or slightly ahead, then the driver on the outside should be given space on that corner exit at that point of the track. Conversely, on the other hand, if this will sync up, well, it works all right. But if the driver on the outside is anywhere further back than level, then he has no claim to the outside of the track, and the driver on the inside has the racing line and is well within his rights to run the other driver out of room because he has the racing line on the inside of the track. As you can see here, even though the drivers are level, say there, wow. Even though the drivers are level there, the driver on the outside falls back a little bit at this point. So by the time they get to the corner exit point, the blue driver should know at that point that he's not going to be given any space, so he backs out of it. Those are part of the rules. That's what all racing drivers know. I did cover this in more detail about why this is the rule in a previous video. I'll leave a card in the top right and a link to it down below in the description where you can have a look at that if you're curious about why this is the rule. If you don't agree with it as well, that's probably a good one to watch. But yeah, at this point, if the person on the inside has the racing line, so they are well within their rights to drift out towards the outside on the exit of the corner because they have the claim to the racing line. And the driver on the outside has to be, as we saw, at least level on corner exit to take away some of that claim to the racing track at that point. So they are expected to follow approximately the racing line, the drivers on the inside, but they do have some freedom in selecting how aggressively they close out another driver, as it says there. So the person on the inside is free to run the driver on the outside out of room if basically he's not level. And at that point, the person on the outside should know that that's going to happen and back out of it. So that should give us enough information to know how to answer all of these clips during this video. And this first one, it's a little bit muddy in terms of whether you could call it being on the outside or on the inside, but let's talk about it first of all in this part of the track. So we're coming up to corner, the apex of this left-hander, and we've obviously gotten, as the black car, we've gotten up the inside on the previous corner. That's given us the outside of the track for this part of the track, but the person on the inside, the blue car, has done enough to be deserving of some space on the inside of the corner, and there is enough space for that to happen. So this little bit of contact here, that's pretty inconsequential, but the space was left there for the blue driver to get up the inside there. But then what happens is that this turns into the outside and the exit of the corner, and you could also call it the inside of the next corner if you want to call that a corner, but that it doesn't matter which way you look at it, it's still going to be the same thing. So if we're looking at this as the exit phase and the outside of the left-hander, the black car is level at this point. You know, that is the exit of the corner, and he was level where it was even in front before it. So this is the exit point of the corner. The black car at this point, as we've just seen, is deserving of this space on the outside because he's done enough to be level on the outside of the corner. So the blue car is not within his rights to just take that racing line and run the black car completely out of road because they're level, they're on the same part of track. You can also look at it a different way and say that at this point, this is now a right-hander. So you can say that this is going around here, and the black car is then on the inside of this, and he's far enough. Again, it's the same situation. He's far enough up the inside to be deserving of some space. Whichever way that you look at it, the black car was deserving of some space here, and it was the duty of the blue car to give the black car some space in that situation, and the contact that happened is entirely the fault of the blue car. He should be waiting for that collision or given a penalty or whatever. But yeah, the black car had absolutely done enough to be deserving of the space on the outside. The blue car was deserving of some space on the inside in the first part of the corner, and the black car leaves that, but he wasn't entitled to just run the black car into the wall. So maybe that was a little bit of an easier one to start us off with, but we've got a tricky one coming up. But let me know what you guys think, whether you agree with that. Do you think, like me, that it was the blue car's fault, or was it the black car's fault for, you know, trying to keep his nose in and he should have backed out or something like that? Or was it just a racing incident? Let me know in the poll. It'll pop up on the top right in a card. You can vote on who you thought was at fault, and also down below in the comments as well, you can let me know. But yeah, in my eyes, entirely the blue car was at fault for that one. So our next clip, this was back in MCEC Multiclass Endurance Championship Season 4 in a GT2 battle, and at the time I was obviously running the championship, but I wasn't allowed to be a steward on this decision because I was part of the race. You know, I was in this race with these two guys, so I couldn't then try to give my thoughts on a situation that could affect me, the championship that I was racing in, the race that I was racing in, things like that. So I guess now we'll get a chance to, I'll get to finally discuss my thoughts. Now, this is basically an outside overtake that we saw earlier on in the rules. The pink car decided to go around the outside of the orange car to try to effect an overtake around the outside. And there's a reason that you don't see this very often. It's because it's very difficult to do, because you've got to carry more speed around the outside of the corner on the less optimal line for the corner to be able to be at least level on the exit of the corner. And that is very, very difficult to do. And as we can see here, that doesn't happen. So we come to the exit phase of the corner, and the pink car is not level with the orange car. It's slightly behind. And that is all that you need to know to determine that this was the pink car's fault. The pink car should have backed out on this one. Whether you agree with that or not, and whether you agree with the idea that, you know, it might not be the gentlemanly thing to do for the orange car to run the pink car out of road like that, he was within his rights to do it, because the pink car hasn't done enough to take that racing line away from the orange car. So as we saw from the rules, You could argue to a certain extent whether the orange car is leaving enough space on the outside of the track, as we've seen in previous episodes, but I would say he did because the pink car was able to get around the outside in the first place, so that kind of negates that. But we see that the orange car has the racing line. He has the upper hand. He has the inside of the corner, and it's on the pink car to be level by the time we get to corner exit, as we saw from the rules a few minutes ago. He has to be level at the corner exit phase to be deserving of any space, and if he's not level, if he's even slightly behind, then he should be expecting that the orange car will run him out of room and he should be backing out of it, and any collision that happens is the fault of the pink car because he didn't back out of it when he should have done. And that's obviously exactly what happens. The orange car is well within his rights at this point to continue his racing line, which takes him out wide, obviously. He's well within his rights to do that because he's far enough ahead. The pink car needs to be up here, really, back bumper to back bumper at this point, to be deserving of any space. You can say that the orange car could have turned more and gone along here and left the pink car room, but he didn't have to, and it's all about the rules. In that situation, he doesn't have to do that. He can take his racing line. He's well within his rights to do that. The pink car should have backed out at this point, but he didn't, and obviously a collision ensues from that. And like I said, it's up to the driver on the inside to determine, we saw this from the rules, how aggressively they close out a driver on the outside. So he didn't actually turn left at any point to, just completely close him off, but he did, open up his steering a little bit, and that's fine. He's allowed to do that because the pink car hasn't done enough to get the space on the outside and be deserving of that space. So for me, entirely the fault of the pink car, this one, that the collision happened. You guys let me know in the poll in the top right and in the comments down below. But based on the rules, and that's what we look at all the time with this, it's entirely, for me, the pink car's fault because he should have backed out in this one. You could call it a racing incident. Maybe you think that the orange car was at fault, but as far as the rules go, he did nothing wrong in that situation. And I believe he did actually get a penalty for that. But obviously, I wasn't allowed to give my thoughts on it because I was racing with these guys. So yeah, I would say that was probably an unjust penalty because, like we said, as far as the rules go, the pink car should have been backing out of that one because he didn't have the space to. He didn't do enough to be entitled to any space on the outside of the corner at corner exit. But as always, as you always do, I'm sure you'll let me know your thoughts down below and in the poll. I've given my thoughts. I've shown the rules as they are as well. We'll see what you guys think. So at the start of the race here for our third clip, and we see a lot of drivers trying to take avoiding action. The drivers that we're focusing on here are the red car here, which took a little bit of avoiding action around the outside to avoid the crash that was going on, and the black car, which went even further around the outside there, as you can see. And we'll see what happens. So red basically comes back onto the track, black tries to come back onto the track, and chaos ensues from that. Absolute carnage. So let's slow it down. And this one's a little bit easier because this isn't necessarily about how much space you need to give on an overtake. It's about how much space you need to give when a driver is coming back onto the track after being off the track. And the answer to that is pretty simple. You don't have to leave any space. It's entirely on the person who's off the track to re-enter the track safely. So obviously the red car is off the track at the moment. The track is defined by the white lines that go around it. And the moment he's off the track, he re-enters it safely, as you can see there. But the black car doesn't do that and just drives straight into the side of the red car. Now, at this point, the red car is under no obligation to move over to the right. He doesn't have to do that at all. It's entirely on the person who's off the track to re-enter it in a safe manner. He should have slowed down, waited until he could get back onto the track properly. even, you could say that it would have been a lot easier if the red car had just moved over. Maybe it would have been the smarter thing to do if he noticed that the black car was just coming completely onto the track, but he didn't have to. And for that reason, this entire bit of nonsense that happens afterwards is completely, in my eyes, the fault of the black car. He was the one who came back onto the track unsafely. He obviously turned the two cars around, then they hit the barrier and go back across the track, which causes so many more people to hit and flip, and the black car gets absolutely turned around so many times. It's unbelievable. But for me, the red car did nothing wrong there. He got back onto the track in a safe manner, but the black car didn't do that. And it was entirely on the black car to re-enter the track safely after having been off it. And the collision, he caused the collision. He just drove into the side. He even went on the grass and just drove into the side of another car who was on the track doing his normal thing. And you can't do that. I believe in the notes for this, it was said that the red car was being blamed for not leaving enough space, but he was under no obligation to leave any space. The obligation is on the person who's off the track to re-enter it safely, and that was not a safe re-entry into the track in my eyes. So this one was entirely the fault of the black car. But as always, poll in the top right, you guys can let me know your thoughts. Was it the black car's fault? Was it the red car's fault for not leaving the space? Or was it just a racing incident and one of those things that happens at the start of a race? You guys let me know your thoughts down below in the comments as well. But yeah, for me, this whole mess was entirely caused by the black car just deciding to drive onto the track in an unsafe way after being off it. So, final clip is a real life racing clip in some karts. I wish I could still do this. I'm so frustrated. But it's the final lap and battle for third place. We see that he gets overtaken, and we go for an overtake on the inside here, and a crash happens. Okay, let's go back a little bit, slow it down, and see what happens. So coming onto the chicane, we can see that we get overtaken. The guy goes for an overtake on the inside, and that's fine, nice and clean. But obviously, because he's gone for that overtake, he's taken a sharper line into the chicane, and he has less speed coming out of it. So we, as the attacker, have got a bit of a run going into the next corner. Now, really, at this point, the guy in front should have just stayed here. He should have just stayed to the right-hand side of the track, defended his position for the right-hand corner, and it probably would have all been fine. He would have kept the position. But he decides to move back over to the left to take his normal racing line, and that basically invites an overtake to happen on the inside. So what we're interested in is, like we saw at the very start of the video, whereabouts are we up the inside, and were we deserving of some space? Now, we haven't even made it to the apex of the corner yet, but as you can see here, on turning, I would say that we're this from the looks of the way that the camera is. Obviously, we don't have an outside shot or anything like that, but from the looks of this, we're definitely more than halfway alongside up the inside of this kart. So, for me, the space should have been left at this point. The driver, the defender, I'm going to call the driver that we've got the position with, the camera position with, the attacker, and the driver on the outside is going to be the defender. That's how it's going to be in the poll as well when you're voting. So, the attacker he's so close to the back at this point as well that there's no way that the defender can't see him in his peripheral vision. You can see who's around you, you can hear it as well. And even at this point, early into this phase, I would say that our nose is alongside the defender as the attacker. So we're coming in, we're braking at this point as well. Now, braking distances aren't quite as big as they are in cars when you're in a kart, so you've got to take that into account. This happens a lot more quickly than it would do in a car with a longer braking distance and stuff like that. But even so, even at this point, the defender just basically turns in, and I think maybe he was hoping that the attacker would just back out of it if he just continued to turn in, but obviously he didn't. He had I think he was far enough up the inside here to be deserving of some space, and I would put the fault of this collision that happens on the defender. And even at the point of contact, you can kind of see that they're pretty much level at the point of contact. So that even shows it even more that the attacker here had absolutely done enough. You can see there, that's the point of contact. He'd absolutely done enough to be deserving of some space on the inside of the circuit here. So as we went from the rows of racing at the start of the video, if you're more than halfway alongside up the inside of someone, any collision at that point is the fault of the defender for not giving enough space on the inside when he's essentially lost the position. But he just turned in anyway. A crash obviously happened, and it's up to the guy who we're riding with to, you know, pick up his cart and try to get it back on the track again. But yeah, for me, I think the attacker was deserving of some space at that point. He was far enough up the inside that the defender should have noticed he was there, realised what happened, and gave the position, or not gave the position, but, you know, not turned in anyway. Really, like I say, he should have just kept to the inside and defended his position going into this corner, and it probably would have been fine. But yeah, entirely the fault of the defender in this one. But you guys let me know. Poll in the top right, was it the defender's fault? Was it the attacker's fault? Should he have just not gone for this move, or was he not far enough ahead? Or was it a racing incident? You guys let me know your thoughts down below in the comments as well, and in the poll for this and all the other clips. So that's pretty much it for this episode. You can find in the video description all the info and links that you may need to submit your own clips, and if you'd like to support me, you can do so on Patreon by becoming a YouTube member or simply subscribing and liking the video. Thank you all so much for watching, I really do appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.